A light-hearted murder mystery with an unlikely detective by someone not called Richard? Never thought I'd see the day. Murder Most Unladylike by Robin Stevens is the first in a series of mystery books set at Deep Dean School for Girls, a boarding school in the 1930s. It follows the detective society, comprised solely of Daisy Wells and Hazel Wong, the president and secretary respectively. Whilst their usual mysteries are episodes such as Missing Socks, they are given the chance to flex their detective muscles when Hazel discovers one of the mistresses dead in the gym. However, the mystery deepens when she returns with Daisy and another teacher to find the body is gone. Hazel worries that she might be their next target as she discovered the body, and so the race is on to find the killer before they strike again. I absolutely loved the way this book was put together. It's framed as a sort of casebook or write-up for the Detective Society, recorded by Hazel as the group secretary. I thought it was quite endearing and a good way of getting both the sort of language of the school and the genuine childlike voices, but also of laying out the facts, as Hazel is apparently quite fond of lists. There is a list of suspects with notes about alibis and other useful information that is updated periodically throughout, so that was actually quite nice. I really liked the main character. Hazel is great. She's from, I think, Hong Kong, or possibly Taiwan. I think it's Hong Kong. So while she's pretty much got the British lingo, as it were, and understands the subculture of the school to an extent, there are still bits that she doesn't understand, and she is also kind enough to explain the meanings of some words to us, the reader, but not all the words, so you're not treated as a complete idiot. It's quite a good compromise. She's also an interesting viewpoint from the perspective of being sort of other, especially as this is set in the 1930s when England was quite a bit more racist. Not that she's discriminated against constantly, but there are the odd bits, but I think it's done quite well. Not over the top to the extent of taking over the story and dampening the light-hearted tone, but enough that it feels genuine. The other characters are good too. The other main character, as it were, is Daisy, who is your proper English Rose, all blonde hair and blue eyes, screaming fury on the lacrosse pitch one moment and then daintily munching an iced bun the next. She's fun, not necessarily the nicest character, but she's fun and believable and very funny. I think one of my favourite running jokes was her occasional reference to her uncle, who knows things like how much a dead body weighs, but she never explains what he does, which I just found hilarious. There is also some nice development of the characters, which in a series like this I'm quite surprised at. With something this light-hearted, you'd think they'd want to keep the status quo intact, but no, the characters do learn things about themselves and make the effort. So that was a surprise, but a welcome one. I love the child's perspective of things, the way they talk about the mistresses at the school and the few masters too, and how these kids pick up on quite a lot, like the fact that two of the mistresses seem to be in some sort of relationship. It's never outwardly said, but the girls all know anyway. And the slang words they have for everything, and the sort of playing dumb to be respected by your peers because no one likes a know-it-all. And I mean, I think my favourite was the fact that they only ever refer to one of the teachers, Mr. Reed, the music teacher, Reed, as the one because he's young and handsome and they all have a crush on him. So he's only ever called the one in Hazel's casebook. And whenever the girls see him, they have this like secret hand gesture that they do to each other to acknowledge that they saw him. It's really stupid, but it's so true of 13-year-old girls. I was getting flashbacks to when I was at school and the nonsense we do to tease each other. And the mystery itself, which is kind of the main part of the book, you'd think, is actually quite good. There were a lot of clues, and I enjoyed how active the girls were in finding these clues. I mean, there are some mysteries out there where the main characters just sort of bumble along and accidentally solve the case through sheer plot contrivance. But these girls really are making the effort by sneaking out at night and skipping lessons and getting alibis. It was really good, and again, the perspective was genuinely quite interesting. Because they are children, they don't have the power or the right to go around asking questions or investigating, especially the teachers. And when the police eventually do arrive nearer the end, they can't use the police. The police don't want to talk to them, so they really do have to use their smarts to solve it. And I also really enjoyed the little glossary at the back of the book to explain some of the girls' slang words. It wasn't needed necessarily, as the ones that weren't explained in the body of the story were easy to work out from the context or just the name. But the glossary was a good, fun read, so, I'll allow it. I suppose the solution was given to the girls on a silver platter, as it were, and I would have preferred them to have solved at least a bit of the last clue before they found it, if that makes sense. Like a connection that they could have made earlier, and the final clue then shows how that connection spurred on the murder, but there we are. There were times I found Daisy's character quite annoying. I get she wasn't perfect, so she could have something to change, but I did wonder why Hazel was friends with her at times. And there's sort of this like hazing procedure that Hazel goes through in a flashback, and it did make me quite sad, as it's quite horrible, but it was never punished. Like, they did something genuinely mean and never received any consequences. But, there we are. I did get a lot of the teachers mixed up as well at times. Fortunately, there was a handy-dandy list of characters at the front, which I referred to a lot, and I'm glad it was there and all, but if I'm being picky, it would have been nicer to not have to keep referring to it. Really just because a lot of the teachers don't necessarily do that much until the second half, ages after they're introduced, so I just forgot who they all were. It's definitely worth a read. It's great fun and a surprisingly good mystery. I can see why some people might not like it, especially if they're not into that sort of tongue-in-cheek facade of propriety type humour. But anyone who grew up with Enid Blyton and sort of Mallory Towers and The Naughtiest Schoolgirl and all of that would probably find it quite fun. And I certainly am looking forward to reading the rest in the series.